Hey guys, Hovin here. So, quick disclaimer, this was actually originally going to be the first episode of Hovin's Hideaway, but the audio recording had some difficulties. So, I've tried my best to get it to a listenable state, and I think it actually turned out better than I initially hoped. But if you do hear a bit of background noise, do just bear in mind that it wasn't recorded under the best conditions. But in any case, enjoy the episode.
No. You're probably wondering why I'm talking to you from like a stuffed animal. It's a slime grape hippo from Gurren Lagann because I couldn't find a Monokuma one. It's because you guys are SHSL podcasters. That's right. You're super hobby section level podcasters. And
Well,
That feels like a demotion.
I need you to.
I think I've hit up. Considering where we come from, that's actually a promotion.
Yeah,
Isn't
so
that-
basically, I need you to record this podcast for me, and then I'll let you go.
Let's
I mean,
go.
I mean,
Alright.
we've
I was
already done one
wondering why I was chained to this chair.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have my thing with Vanessa until Tuesday next week, so
You could have just called me. We already recorded one of these.
nah.
even if that didn't get released, you could have also just sent me a Skype message, scheduled this thing. I would have been on board.
Also, where are we? Are we still in Canada?
No, you're in my lair. It's my little basement. I've set it up to be like a podcast recording studio. It's very makeshift. For some reason,
but
I could only find like a laptop mic for some of your microphones.
Hovin,
Yeah.
how much did this cost you?
So I don't want to say.
It would have been free if you just called us up and we'd done it through Discord or something.
Look.
You
hindsight
guys
is
just aren't
20/20,
you guys
guys.
just aren't getting into the spirit of this. So
Yeah, I mean, as far as torture death traps go, 1 star on Yelp.
damn.
I mean, I guess it still technically qualifies for the top 5 ones I've been in.
How many have you been in?
That's a podcast for another day.
Right. So the big topic for this week's episode is a little game. It's called Danganronpa V3. Three of
yeah.
us have talked about the Danganronpa series before in our Danganronpa 2 cast, but this time I kidnapped you in order to do it. So, I guess to start off, why don't you guys give me your spoiler-free thoughts on the game, how it compares to the other, and maybe give a little introduction on what you think of the series as a whole.
I enjoy the series. I didn't really start enjoying it until the second game, though. The first game, I think, can be a little hard to get into for some people, but as for the second game, I really enjoyed it. The third game, I like a lot. It's not my favorite, and there are certain reasons that do drag it down for me, though we'll get into it later, but I enjoyed it quite a lot. I think the cast is good. I think a lot of the trial mechanics are fun, and the way the story unfolds, I think, given the series direction, I think makes sense.
Well, for me, the series I only got into it when the second game was brought to Steam, because the first one I never played. I watched the abridged series made of the anime, and after that I just kind of had to read how the thing ends, so I was already spoiled, didn't feel like it. But coming from Ace Attorney, it was a very different experience, even though it had the same kind of flavor to it. And I always like games that make me feel clever when I put things together, and it's a completely written mystery story. Though, if we go for this game specifically, while these days I think I would say that it is my favorite of the series, it has few iffier elements. Though I feel that's like a given for the series that it has some iffy parts.
Yeah, for me, I played through all the games very close together, because V3 had literally just come out when I started playing the first one. And so me and my flatmate just went through them all in the course of about a month. And I think V3, I really like some of the things it does with the Danganronpa concept. but I'm still a little unsure on like how it went with the ending, which we will get to later. It's something I've gone back and forth on whether I like or not. In any case, I guess for those who don't know what Danganronpa is, it's a series of games about a bunch of super high school level kids who are kidnapped by this stuffed animal with a very odd voice who basically forces them into situations where he pressures them to kill each other. And when one of them dies, they have a class trial where the victim has to whoever the killer is needs to basically get away with it without getting caught. And if that's so, they get released, and the others die. But if they pick that's what happens if they pick the wrong one, pretty much. And each game follows this format, and the first two have a very cohesive plot with each other, whereas this one treats it a little differently. They still reference stuff from the first two games, but it handles the overarching story aspect quite differently. So I guess without much else to get into, I've sent out a few questions for us to answer.
Question about the questions.
Yes.
Is this the spoiler-free section?
I think from here in, we're just going to go all in with spoilers.
Okay, good.
It's just a hard
another question.
Yes.
Would it have also made more sense to just ask us on Discord so we would have read the questions ahead of time instead of kidnapping us?
You shouldn't question the mastermind.
I swear to God, if this is Junko and Ushima at the end of this one too.
Alright, so I posted one on Reddit, and I mentioned the fact that I kidnapped you. So the first question I got was, where is your home address so I can find you, you absolute psychopath? So that didn't really work out. I decided to delete it and repost without mentioning the details about the kidnapping. And on Twitter, the first question I've got is from Liam Tasker, who asks, at what point did you figure out what was going on with Kaede? Or Kaede, however you pronounce her name. Did you clock into that? I didn't. I was completely taken off guard by it.
Well, unfortunately, since I was reading message boards before that, some very kind individuals that I would very much like to hurt right now spoiled the whole thing for me before the game came out.
Oof.
Not even with spoiler tags, just put the headline of the message with it.
Yeah, I've had friends who've had that with important characters from certain anime. Like they'll just be talking about like a character, they're talking about a show, and it's like, oh yeah, that character, the one who dies like a character from other show, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, and this is not even like that. Like, I know there is a back limit to like when you're allowed to talk to this, but that limit is certainly after the game has been released.
For me, I would say probably around when it's hard for me to nail the exact moment, but it's a couple about 10 minutes before the actual like switch happens. Before you switch from Kaede being the point of view character to Suichi. There's a build up point there where I sort of thought, okay, I think this is where it's going right now. And so I'll be like, that's probably out of all the twists in the game, I would say that's probably the best executed one for me. Because there was a good amount of time where the game does a very good job of making you think that Suichi is the killer. And that also seemed like a very Danganronpa kind of like twist. But it seemed but to me, it seemed a little too similar to the second game where they killed off the quote-unquote Byakuya character right off the bat.
Yes.
So I thought it was like, here's the detective, and we killed him off. I'm like, well, it doesn't really mean much other than the fact they have the detective title. But then for it to be the point of view character, I thought that was a very interesting way of shaking it up.
Yeah,
I was sad. But oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, especially since they've never done something like that where you completely change who you're playing. I mean, there have been some brief periods, like I think in the first game, second game, but like game gave no indication that you wouldn't play Kaede from start to finish.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because, if I'm being perfectly honest, I would have preferred to play Kaede
Yeah,
from start to
even
finish.
though
Personally.
Shuichi is the best of the 3 protagonists we've had so far in the main game,
Mhm.
I would have still preferred Kaede.
Yeah,
it's
she's a very likable protagonist for the
It would- it
the,
would
the
also-
stretch that she is one.
It would also have been nice to finally get like the series' first female point of view character. I don't count the Ultra Despair Girls games. So
Yeah, I played about like I didn't even I watched my flatmate play about an hour of it, and then we both got quite bored.
oh, they're garbage. They're complete. I could just do a podcast not just explaining why everything about that game is horrendous.
Yeah, I never played it because I played Dangle and Ronpas for the story and like Phoenix Wright kind of trial scenes. I don't play them to play an FPS. I want FPS, I'll play Doom.
So the second question that Liam Tasker sends us is, why is Kaito so great?
Grail,
I think I'll answer that because after this game, Kaito became my favorite character, not just in this game, but in the entire series. Even surpassing Fuyuhiko. And though it's been a while, I think one thing about Kaito is his positive attitude about everything. How he's always looking at the bright side. Even like when everyone finds out that Maki isn't the ultimate assassin and not the ultimate child caregiver, he is still looking at the best side of her and trying to believe in her no matter what. And even though it is kind of naive and brought up a few times, he's also always trying to be a positive influence. Even when he's like slacking off when they're doing their nightly training sessions, he's still using those just to get Shuichi to be better and kind of open up. Same with Maki. So I'd say it's his positivity that really makes him the best character in the series.
I personally think what's good about Kaito is that he's allowed to be wrong, but that he sticks to his convictions very well. Because I would say one of my issues with a lot of media is when you have a character who's meant to bring everybody together, but who can't make mistakes, and who, even when they do something wrong, they're seen as an endearing mistake rather than an actual straight-up mistake. And I think that's what's good about Kaito, is that it balances very well for him, is that, you know, he's a great character when it comes to bringing other characters together. He has a ton of charisma. He has a fantastic design, I think. I just think the way the character is designed is excellent. But also, he's allowed to do things that aren't strictly logical, that are emotional, but not in an irritating way, in an actual very touching way. So it's one of the reasons I think he works so well in this game. He's not my favorite character in the game, but he's an extraordinarily close second.
Okay.
And for me, I think he was... I mean, from the advertisements of when the game was coming out, you could tell that he was going to be a very, very big character.
He does stand out a lot. That's an interesting thing, actually. I initially didn't like the designs for this game, but as soon as I started playing, I pretty much got into them. or at least got used to them.
Yeah, there was one design that I hated that the second I actually saw it in practice, I thought was pretty excellent. But we'll get to that when we inevitably discuss characters.
Okay.
But
I was already curious who it was.
Yeah, well, we'll get to it. But I would say that Kaito, he's pretty excellent. And I think he stayed for me for the right amount of time.
Yeah. I just like the fact that he's just a giant walking Kamina reference. He's a very similar kind of character to Kamina from Gurren Lagann. He's also a very similar kind of older brotherly character to the main guy. He always lifts the rest of the team through his spirit, but he's kind of a bonehead. He also drapes stuff over his shoulders, and that's kind of a big part of his look.
Yeah. And plus, he is the only one who avoided their punishment time. Like getting a win over Monokuma.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was something like that in the Ultra Despair Girls, but again, never played it, so I wouldn't know.
It's all garbage.
I just get the sense that everything outside of the main 3 games you can kind of just leave with the Danganronpa series.
Well, I
Kinda.
never read any of the books, so wouldn't know.
No, I haven't either. And again, I've mixed feelings on the anime, as we discussed another time.
Yeah, I just flat out don't like it.
Yeah, I'll just say it again about 3. Fuck that anime and anyone who likes it.
So Kagiyaku asks favorite class trial. This one's a tricky one for me because with 2 I have a very obvious favorite, which is the one set in the theme park. Whereas with this, I struggle to pick out one that I'm really a fan of over the others. I don't know about you guys.
It is kind of a hard one, though. If you put a gun to my head and said I have to give an immediate answer, I would probably say, what's the 5th one where Kaito died?
Yes, it's the 5th one.
Yeah, that would be 5th one, because you have no idea. You know, like, one of these guys killed one of these guys, but you have no idea which one did it, and your perspective is always shifting about who did what.
Yeah, it keeps it up in the air throughout the whole trial, which, I guess, my take on the others, I don't know if it's just because I played all the games so close together, but I found them really easy to solve compared to past games.
Oh god, yes.
I can't remember that part.
Especially the one where they're in the video game, because they so deliberately lay stuff out for you in like a very straightforward fashion. So it's just a matter of like putting 2 and 2 together in the most basic way possible.
Well, yeah, that was the easy one, because yeah, like the game's too barren, so everything that's even a little bit standing out, you know, okay, this is important.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I'll be honest. I think most of the trials are just kind of like the actual back and forth is fine. The game, I think the dialogue is what's really excellent about it, but I don't find a lot of the mysteries to be particularly engaging. There are ones I like, probably not for the right reasons. I find the 3rd trial absolutely hilarious, but that's not quite.
Is that the one with Himiko, or the one with the cult?
It's the same trial, I think.
Oh, are they the same? No.
Well, like.
No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the one with Himiko and the one where Angie got murdered.
Yeah, that's the 3rd one.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Because Himiko, when I say the one with Himiko, I mean the one where she's constantly trying to prove that it's magic.
That was the 2nd one.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Tenko and Angie died in the 3rd one. Ryoma died in the 2nd one, where Himiko tried to prove that it's magic.
That's the thing. It's like I find that every trial has something, like there's something that's really good, and then there's something that keeps coming up that's just annoying as hell. Like, I like the 2nd trial. I find the fact that Himiko is intentionally accidentally sabotaging herself the entire time to be, at least I found it remarkably annoying.
I found it quite funny, but I can see where you're coming from.
For me, I was just like, this is so strange. It's like, no, it's magic. Okay, but like, how does that defend you? It doesn't, but I promise it's magic. It's like, that's not helping you, though.
Okay, so now we've got 2 questions of quite a similar variety. It's Hannah Style asks, best girl? And then Dovercake1 adds, why is everyone so blind to the fact that Angie is clearly best girl? Praise Atua and have a nice day.
Well, first of all, because you are fucking wrong, Angie is worst girl.
Angie one, nay! Angie weirdly grew on me. I did not like her at first and found her really annoying, and then she just... It's like a really cheesy bad song that just gets stuck in your head, and you just like... you just sort of grow oddly fond of it. That's Angie for me as a character.
I don't know, man. It's hard because, like, I would say of the overall cast, there are 3 who I stand out as, like, enjoying throughout. One's Kaide. I enjoyed Kaide quite a bit. Miyu is so strange. But there is something I do find weirdly hilarious about her that I enjoy. But for me, it's probably Maki. I think Maki is one of the few characters allowed to have a character arc throughout this entire game.
I really like the maid. Hirumi, yeah. I just think I love the whole like maid aesthetic. I really like her personality and the twist about like her backstory and that she's actually
Yeah.
like this superhuman who was gonna run the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, just her whole disposition is always a really fun presence.
I can see it. I can see it. I don't know. Maybe if she stuck around a bit longer, I'd have more of like an attachment to her.
Yeah, that feel
But-
when
but she-
she dies and bloody Himiko survives to the end.
Well, that's the thing, because like there's certain characters where I'm like, I feel like this character would be a lot more in. I feel like if this character got some time to be flushed out, they'd be memorable to me. That's how I always felt about Mahiru in the second game. About how like this would probably be an interesting character if they didn't die when they were still boring.
Except, like, yeah, literally the only thing you really get from her is that she's a big tsundere for you if you do her whole social link. I call it a social link
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they're like, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I don't remember
for
what the
me-
sections are called. Heart to heart.
So
I'd
like
call
for me, I would
time events.
I would say for me is that I find Miyu the most entertaining, even though some of her dialogue and really some of the dialogue in this game, just in general, is really weird. But I think Maki probably has the best character arc of that particular group, so I'd probably have to say Maki.
Well, first of all, I'll just say again, that Angie was to me a lot like Hiyoko from the second game. As in, I celebrated when they died.
She wasn't as bad as Hyoko to me, but I can,
No,
I
she
can see
wasn't,
that.
but she was still bad enough for me to celebrate. As for
That's
Best
fair.
Girl, even though we got a very short time with her, I would say Kaede.
Mhm.
Just because of the energy and how different the protagonist she seemed in comparison to two far more passive ones when we thought she was the protagonist. Plus, I just really like her design. I would just say it's pretty.
It is cute. The Spiral Power, he's called Scorpion and then a bunch of numbers actually, but I just know him as Spiral Power. He says, think the series should continue after V3. And then Reaper 4 gives a similar thing of how do you feel about it being the final entry at least from Kodaka. So yeah, I guess on my part, I would be interested to see more games, but I would like them to just drop the kind of canon they had. I think they should just do very straightforward variations on the general formula and keep like the basic things like the Monokuma mascot and that sort of thing, but not try and link them back to past games.
I'd say that I would be interested in seeing more because, well, I love Dangle and Ronpas, and more is always usually better, I'd say. But I would not be bummed if they thought, okay, we're finished with this story, we're gonna do something else now. We don't want to just drag this out endlessly.
Yeah,
I would
go
also say if they do continue, they should probably start it in a new continuity because after this, I don't think they can continue from where this left off. Not in this continuity or the, well, fictional continuity, how I would say.
Yeah, I think for the series to have a point, it has to have an ending at some point. Like, because what people have always said, and it's a fair statement, is that the whole message of the game being like hope, despair, stuff like that, doesn't really work if this series just endlessly continues throughout this, like, oh, you know, here's another round of people dying. Now here's another round of people dying. Now here's another round of people dying. Like, there has to be some form of concrete end to this story for it to just not feel like the game is just like, you know, pseudo philosophy in that sense, for it to feel just like, yeah, hope wins in the end, but here comes another like 15 ones where you kill a bunch of teenagers. So I do think that there has to be an ending, and for what it's worth, I think they do really try to go into the point of this ending.
Which,
I would
speaking
not
of,
be opposed-
our next question,
Yeah.
which we've had from a couple of people, is what do you think about V3's polarizing ending?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'd say it took me a long time to really gather my feelings because that ending was complicated. But in the end, I would say I did not like it. I don't think I hate it, but if you had to say to ask if it's good or bad, I would have to go to the side of bad. Because I feel it too much feels like it's calling out your fans for liking what you've been doing. Like it's saying, hey, like it's an FPS game saying like, war is shit and you're shit for playing. Also buy more of our games. But I understand that might not even a point, but it conveyed that point poorly because so many got that impression.
I mean, like anyone that knows me knows that like I'm very big on series getting quite meta with stuff. Like one of the reasons I'm quite forgiving of the Star Wars sequel trilogy so far, The Last Jedi in particular, is because they really lean into being a meta commentary of being a Star Wars fan. So I constantly go back and forth on this ending. Because on the one direction, I kind of like how it's foreshadowed earlier in the game with just how sort of how out there it gets with all the gimmicky stuff and how weird the different kinds of students are in this one compared to earlier entries, which we're getting a bit outlandish, but this takes it to a whole new level with there being a robot and everything. But at the same time, there was just a part where the villain, not sort of the cosplayer girl, who turns out to be the mastermind, was just monologuing about what fans think, and it felt very indulgent. And not terribly accurate either. Nova, what do you think?
I would say that's sort of the issue for me. One of the issues I would say with the game is that I do think the meta commentary works very well, frankly. What I would say is I think in terms of self-indulgent, yes, I do think it did get kind of self-indulgent towards that point, but I don't know, I just think meta commentary-wise, I think it makes sense. Like, it's sort of what I was getting into before, in the sense that, you know, you have a series constantly about, like, the idea of hope, triumphing over despair, and then you have a fan base who just, like, because they want more of it, it kind of starts to taint what the series is about if we just keep doing this over and over again. So I did understand what they were going for in that sense, in the sense that, like, for this to mean anything, it has to end. For us to do this, we all have to, like, accept this as a group. I think the part it gets a little indulgent, where they were like, and the fans agreed with us. It's like, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, plus the whole, like, the internet hate mobs calling you out for not wanting it to go on.
Yeah, but what I would say overall is that I think out of the different endings in the series, I don't really think it's that bad, frankly. I think it makes sense for what the series was doing. And I'm not one of those people that's like the ending's horrible. I would just say I
definitely don't think it's horrible. I admire its ambition a lot. It doesn't totally land for me. But I am glad that they went for something big with it.
Yeah.
All right, and then so now we're fully onto Reddit questions, which if you're ever last minute asking for podcast stuff, Reddit is your man because they gave us quite a few. Captain Foxy asks, if you had to pick 2 students to defend you while the rest attacked you, who would you pick? I'm not sure if he means like physically defend and physically attack, or like in a class trial. I guess I'm gonna let's go with physically first.
All right, that's not even hard. Gonza and Kibo. Because, well, Gonza is fucking huge, and Kibo, well, you saw the last chapter. He just goes full, like, Genos mode and just fires from above with his laser cannons.
Yeah, the only one who'd give you any difficulty there is, Maki.
Yeah, but even then, I don't think she'd do much against Kibo.
And then, yeah, do you have a similar answer, Nova, or
probably the same thing?
Yeah. So what about like in an actual class trial? Like, say the rest of the class are all like going at you. They think you're the killer, and 2 students are defending you. Who do you want to have your back?
Well, first one would be Shuichi, because he's the guy who always figures things out as a player character, but still. And second would be Kokichi, just cause he's the shitster who might already know what's going on, even if he won't say it, and just teases everyone with it. Plus,
Honestly,
he's
probably-
really good at manipulating people's emotions.
Honestly, probably the same for me. Frankly, Kokichi is such like a prick. Like I'd probably prefer to have him on my. I'd probably pick Kokichi if only just to make sure that he's on my side.
That's fair. I think I'm more going to go on the logic of who are the people that I find the nicest that I'd want to have on my side because they're buds, and I'd go with Kaede and Kaito for that.
Mm-hmm.
Character. So then we've got favorite murder method. I do quite like the magic trick.
No,
I do
yeah,
quite.
but I mean, the murder method there was just drowning.
I don't know.
And
Does
the
the
hydraulic press
setup
was
does the
just-
setup to how the actual murder takes place matter or not?
Because if we go only by murder method, I'd say being strangled by toilet paper is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. I just think like the theatricality of that last one, I was like, oh geez, okay, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, but if we do account for what's around it, then I think I would also go for the magic trick of being eaten by piranhas.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'd probably go for that fifth trial. It is the more that I think about it, the more I do think that it's probably the strongest trial on a lot of counts. Next up, Captain Foxy asks us favorite character design. I've pretty much already stated my case for why I really like Kirumi's design. It's like it's not just a typical maid outfit. They've kind of taken their own spin on it, and it's kind of gothy in a way. So yeah, I really dig that.
Miyu, Kokichi, and Kaito for me, as I would say. I think those are three really solid.
I find it really interesting that you love Miyu when we've kind of in past podcasts.
I love the character. I just find him very entertaining.
I do find that interesting though, because we've in the past we've kind of painted Jonah out to be the podcast prude. And then you find
you have, yes.
And then Miyu's whole thing is that a lot of her humor is just made around her making really obscene jokes.
I guess it's because, and this is why I always prefer her to Hyoko, is because Miyu gets called out for her shit.
No, exactly. That's why it's hilarious.
Yeah, and she always does feel like it gets to her when she's called out, and then, fuck you anyway. I don't care if you hate me. My favorite design, that is I think I'm gonna have to go with Kokichi. Because it has, especially those eyes, and the two sprites, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those especially sell him as this evil mastermind motherfucker.
Speaking of Kokichi, character you'd most like to avoid in real life, definitely him, for me.
I don't know. It's a tie between him and Korekiyo.
Oh wait, no, sorry. I'm thinking of Korekiyo. I'm not thinking of Kokichi. Yeah, no, I definitely lean more towards Korekiyo of those two.
Though, if I had to choose a third, probably Tenko, cause I think she would want to kick my ass, and I know she could kick my ass.
I thought about Tenko, but I do just fall on the side of Korekiyo is the it is the one I'd want to avoid the most.
Either Kurokiyo or Tenko. Honestly, Tenko because they're just not somebody I'd want to talk to. Kurokiyo because they're just not somebody I'd like to be seen near.
All right. Captain Foxy then gives us favorite killer/victim/survivor and least favorite. So I guess we'll go favorite and least favorite killer first.
Least favorite for me is Kurokiyo, just because, duh.
Yeah, I mean, incest. You.
Well, no, but also this is just the most obvious killer. I've never, throughout the entire game, I was just like, no, nobody likes this guy. Everybody hates him. He's clearly going to be a killer at some point. It's just the most obvious one for me. So that was just the most, in terms of favorite, Kaede, probably. It's hard to count Kaito.
Yeah.
Or Gaunt. It's hard to count Kaito and Gonta in my mind. Those two are in such a gray area that those two would be my picks if they weren't in such a gray area. In terms of actual intent, I'd put Kaede, but Gonta and Kaito, you could also just interchange those two for my answer.
I would put in Kaito or To in there still, because in that case, it has like theoretically 3 murderers, because there was Maki who poisoned both of them, then there was Kokichi who masterminded the whole thing, and Kaito who just pulled the trigger, so take your pick.
I don't really have a strong opinion on. I suppose. Thing is, does Kaede really count? Because in the end, we find out that like she wasn't actually the one that killed them.
That's also a good point.
Wow. Let's start choosing who actually did the killing.
Wasn't it? I thought it was the ultimate cosplayer.
No, I mean just like, okay, who do we consider killer in this case? Because we have one where it's like it's either Tsumugi or Kaede, because we find out in the end, and then the 5th case where it's like, is it Kokichi, Kaito, or Maki who we should consider?
So favorite and least favorite victim. I suppose you could, in a sense, call Kaede a victim. So I'd maybe go with her. And favorite killer. Obviously my favorite killer is Kirumi Doi.
Again, like I was kind of sad when Miyu died, just because like as we go along. But I'd probably go with Miyu, honestly. Like immediately come to mind. And in terms of like least favorite, I didn't really care that much. I guess Angie, just because I'm like, then when they died, I was like, sure.
That solves the problem.
Oh, sorry, not Angie. Tenko, just because when Tenko died, I was like, oh, finally.
Yeah, for me it's the opposite. It's Angie who was, yes, finally they're dead. But for favorite, it would be Kokichi.
As far as survivors go, it's probably the easiest. For me, my favorite is maybe Shuichi, and then my least favorite is Himiko. Because Himiko's like the one that's like, really? That character survives to the end of all of them?
Well, I mean, there's only 3 choices, so it's not hard to pick.
Yeah.
So Himiko for me too, and I think my favorite would actually be Maki out of the survivors.
Same for me,
I
frankly.
think this game has the least survivors of any.
Yep.
It's always been like, was it 5 or 6? I can't remember. But here it's just 3.
It's decreased every single game. It was 6 and it was 5 and now it's 3.
Yeah, and here it's like looked like it would be 5, but then the game pulled the rug on you.
Yeah.
By trying to make you think that Tsumugi was in some way interesting as the mastermind.
Some way interesting in anywhere. We'll get to that later, but this game had so many boring as all hell characters.
And then the last question is from Captain Foxy is favorite in-community meme.
I actually haven't followed the memes of this game, so I cannot answer that.
I highly recommend my video Makes a Man Go, which is a top-tier shitpost about Angie. You can find it on this very channel.
I'll be honest, I don't keep up with a lot of the memes.
Because,
like, they have spoilers. There's one meme I do love, which is the like you blanked into the wrong neighborhood. It was a YouTube thing where like somebody was just pairing all of like the characters' dialogues into this one like R&B style song for a really long time, which was hilarious. There's a Miyu one that is hysterical. It like you mewed into the wrong neighborhood or something. It is hysterical.
Right.
So that's probably my favorite one.
Out of curiosity, did you guys play the game dub or Japanese with Japanese voices?
Dub.
I played with a dub. It's just how I'm used to playing.
Yeah, I played through all 3 games with Japanese voices, but yeah, it's interesting. So One for All 12 asks, who do you think would survive the killing game before you started playing the game? I think at this point I have just gotten to the level where like especially before I start playing the game, there's no real way to predict that except for like one of the protag looking ones.
At the end of case 1 when you got some grasp on the characters.
I mean, okay, I guess I always figured that Kaede would survive since she seemed very main character-ish from the box art, but aside from that, I didn't really... I didn't really have that many assumptions about it.
I thought that Kaito would survive to the end just by how he acted at the end of case 1. But shows me wrong.
Mm.
And Magi hadn't really gotten into being an important character yet, and Himiko never got to be an important character, really. Not that I hated her, but just she's not important.
I don't know. Honestly, I try to go into the games not even having those thoughts, so it's hard to talk with it for me. I would say in terms of Himiko and Maki making it to the end, those one made sense to me. There were certain people I kind of knew weren't going to make it throughout the entire game, and for me it was a coin flip for who was going to make it to the end of the game after the first chapter. Because after the first chapter, I've been like, oh, Soichi's probably going to make it. But after the first chapter, I'm like, oh, he's definitely going to make it. From there, it was a coin flip between Maki and Kaito as to which one of them would make it.
Yeah. The only case where I can think of, like, I had a really strong prediction about something that just didn't happen was in any of these games was in the second game. I assumed at some point Sonya was gonna, like, flip out and, like, the sort of friendly, quirky princess facade was gonna drop and she was gonna be crazy, and they never did that. And I'm glad they didn't. It's nice to just have a character who's really sort of bonkers and weird, but is, like, an amiable person. And then the last question is from Kissnot. What do you think of the protag swap? I think we've already covered this, that we think it's one of the strongest twists in the game.
Yeah, would have been if some idiot didn't spoil it. Fuck you, whoever you were. Some poster on the forums that I did not remember the name of.
All right. Are there any other things you guys want to get into in terms of discussion of this? I know, Jonah, you mentioned you were quite. You found a lot of the characters really boring. Don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah, I would say that if this game for me has an issue of there are quite a few characters who have one gimmick sometimes, and then the rest of the time they're just very generic. I would say in terms of people who have that issue, the two biggest examples for me are Samugi and Tenko, who I just find criminally boring as characters. Tenko is just a very, very boring one character quirk, which is not endearing and is just very annoying whenever it comes up. I had a bit of an issue of that with Ryoma, but Ryoma, I do think, got at least something later on. Kibo, I think, tries very hard to be an interesting character, but there's just something about Kibo that never connected with me whatsoever. So that's what I would say, is that it's not just that this game is boring, it's that some of the most boring characters in the entire game stay around for a while. And it just sort of has me thinking, like, well, why couldn't, like, this character, like Taro, why couldn't if he stayed around a bit longer? Because he's a lot more interesting than Tenko, or like, why couldn't Kurumi have stayed longer?
Both the murderer and the victim of the second trial are characters I'd have loved to have seen for longer.
No, yeah, exactly.
But, same for the first trial, because Rantaro, like, not only did you put a big mystery over this guy's ultimate talent and his loss of a lot of his memories, but you also put Johnny Young Bosch to voice him. You do not expect that to die in case 1.
Oh, now you're making me want to replay the game in dub. I haven't heard Johnny Young Bosch and stuff for a while.
There's a lot of people in this game who, like, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, the fact, like, Kyle Hebert is, like, Kaito. The fact that Derek Stephen Prince comes back to voice Oma, and even, like, people where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, Todd Haberthorn is Kurokiyo.
Oh, so, like, Natsu is Kurokiyo. That's interesting.
Yeah, and then Wendy Lee is Miyu. So there's a lot of, like, little, like, people here and there who are like, oh, that's actually really cool that they're in this game, and they do a great job, because I think, generally speaking, the voice acting in this game is pretty excellent.
I guess another point that I had is the gameplay compared to the other two, and while it still kind of falls into that format of, like, even though the gameplay is quite the some of the mini games are quite simple, they do break up the monotony of the VN sections, because I've tried to get through proper VNs, and I struggle with them a lot because they're this weird in between being a book and being a game. So whenever something like Persona or this breaks it up a bit more with some gameplay segments, it usually makes it easier for me to invest. But some of the games, and this is the case for all three of them, aren't great. Like the one where you're driving in a car, it's just there's not much to it.
That's so boring.
Yeah. Whereas like one that I thought, was quite fun was as an addition was the debate scrum. I think mainly for like the music that plays behind it. It's a really good track.
Yeah, it is fucking amazing, and I do like the kind of having everyone against everyone type of debate. Like even if you're calling out who does it, and even they call like, "Hey, you Angie, you do it now. Kaito, your turn. Kokichi." But it still feels like everyone is putting against everyone else. So it's not just you going against one person or you going against everyone. But the debate scrum track is really fucking good.
Yeah. And then there's just the basic, the very straightforward, argument armament and shooting the right answer, which that's worked for the past few games.
I mean,
and
those
it still
were
works here.
in the previous games. So.
Yeah. They had the thing of the V point, which is a nice little gamey thing. Like I was always trying to get the V.
Though also, I think Hangman's Gambit was for once done right.
Yes, this is the one game where I actually didn't hate the Hangman's Gambit. I really hated it in the second one.
Also, on Debate Scrum, I like going through the Debate Scrum compilations or the music stuff on YouTube because I see all kinds of creative people doing like how they would have done those in the games 1 or 2.
All right. Is there anything else you guys want to discuss about V3?
Well, we went through the ending. We went through that stuff.
I think we can run through like a couple more characters, like the thing. Like
sure, there's plenty we haven't covered.
Like one character who I absolutely love, who didn't mention, is Gonta. Because I think Gonta, like when I first saw his design, I just thought it was the most boring design I've ever seen in my life. But like actually put in the game, it's really cool. The character I think is just so much fun. He's really kind, but I think there was a misstep in the sense that I think he wasn't paired with enough interesting characters. Like I think he spends a little too much time with Kokichi, and I would have loved to see him like have some more free time events with people like Kimiko or Maki or Miyu. Because I think he's such
one thing that makes Gonta very effective is that like he is just so simple-minded and easy to like rile up that he makes trials very complicated.
Yeah, and I do love his kind of like take on the gentle giant archetype when he tries to be the proper gentleman. And also, in the context of the story, I could not tell if he really was raised by lizard because I figured that seems really outlandish even for this game. But Gonta really doesn't seem like someone who is at all capable of lying.
Oh yeah,
also,
you go.
Yeah, that does bring up one more talking point, but you go ahead first. I'll bring it up once you're done.
Yes. One thing that Grail has mentioned before in the past that I do not like in this game is the monocubs. I think they're super annoying and they just get in the way, and you just want like Monokuma to be the focus because he's more entertaining.
They're awful.
And I also think they are an aspect of the meta ending of the game of this. They're throwing in loads of gimmicky stuff. Look, they're doing like a bunch of kids with their own gimmicks, where it's like, I understand that as a bit of foreshadowing, but it makes the game less fun when you're having to put up with them, which I don't get for stuff like just some of the designs being really wacky compared to other games. But, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's because they're not funny. They're not interesting. They don't have a good dynamic between each other, and every single time it's like a buffer before you can get to the good stuff. Like a trial will end, and before we get to the moment where the characters can like talk about this and like reflect on what just happened, we have to spend like 5 minutes being like, oh no, one of the mono cubs died. Oh no, like who cares? Like we can't just go right to that. We have to wait until like, oh no, the robot one died. It's like I don't care. Can we move on?
Plus, they don't really contribute anything to the plot.
No, they don't.
I think one time they do is in like case 4 when you need those guys to actually understand Mew's computer world, because only one who understood it is Mew, and she's dead.
Even then, though, I feel like there was a better way that could have been like.
Yeah, maybe it was, but I'm just saying that as it was, that was the only time I can think of when they really contributed to the plot.
Which says something about like the characters in this. That the only time they can contribute something is when a character who could have already done this is dead.
Mm.
I don't know. I personally, they were the one part of the game where every time it came up, I was like, this is phenomenally uninteresting. They're like the Tenko of the Mono Cups.
So, Grail, you had one other talking point.
Yeah, it's I'd say, characters being fake in context of the story, which is really a big negative for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think in the case of Samugi, it was a big downfall since it basically meant she wasn't really a character. Or at least she wasn't a particularly interesting one by the end. She was just a plot device. Though then again, I guess I have heard some argue that Junko is one of the weaker things about the first 2 games, which I'm not entirely sure I agree with, but I definitely think that just like having the villain just be Junko again would have been a bad idea, but at the same time, Samugi ultimately just comes up as more of a concept than she does in like an actual fully fledged character.
Yeah, and for me, like making that all the characters were fake, even in the context, like okay, they weren't really like this. They just had like implant personalities, which just cheapens the whole thing. When I have to always think when I'm looking at Kaito, like he isn't really this. This is just like story. This is like fiction, even in the context of this game.
Well, like, yeah, I don't know. I guess that does just tie into like the whole relative, like, does the fact that it was fabricated make the emotions any less genuine, and all that, which I guess is the central argument at the end of the game, pretty much. Oh dear, it seems that Jonah's tranquilizers have worn back in again. He's a bit conked out.
Wait, I am?
Oh, you've woken back up, thank goodness. And
I am, yes, thank God.
Not that it matters, because I'm about to put you guys back to sleep so that I can stop recording the podcast and not have
Will you at least get us home after this?
Yes, I'll have you shipped off to your respective countries.
Ah, thank God.
Good.
Is awful.
I'm pretty sure my dad's gonna be pretty worried about me just going missing for how long have we been under?
I was gonna say, what's the flight time between Canada and England again?
It's quite a few hours. I had to knock you up on some very heavy stuff.
Also, can you just like have the tranquilizer so that I can still be like awake on the plane? I just want to play with my Switch.
Yeah.
I just got Streets of Rogue and it's pretty fun.
Also, next time I do need to make sure that there isn't some weird ghost in Nova's mic. It's been producing some very unusual noises.
It does.
Also,
that.
I'm not sure why I just put us in different parts of the room and still using Discord. So we have those Discord on and off sounds. Like, we're in the same room, we could use the same computer.
It was all a bit overly elaborate, I guess. Don't worry, I'm sure it won't happen again.